Are we ready to rumble?
No, I'm not sure if these types of arena fights are legal.
Yeah, I knew a dude who once threw a few dozen cats into an arena to fight over lasagna to find the true Garfield.
How am I related to you?
What's up, visitors? Everybody has a guilty pleasure. After all, I'm only a robot. I know it doesn't make sense, just work with it. Because look, I did this! Maybe this reminds me too much of a certain film. I felt like I've talked about this before. Godzilla vs. Kong. If you forgot this film released this year, I don't blame you. It had everybody talking about it leading up to release, but then it sort of just happened. Not for me, no. I watched this film a lot. And I mean, a lot. Yeah, I mean, after all, we see Godzilla, Japan's movie icon, face off against the face of a dog chew toys company you will always find at your local Petco. For a lot of people, this movie sort of just dropped. A lot thought it was just okay, but I'm here to say that this film is better than that. It definitely was underrated in a certain aspect, which, I gotta completely paint for you. Was it a masterpiece? No, it has a ton of issues I could play charades with, but there's some stuff about this movie which was interesting to me. Something that I must take note of that makes it different from every other kaiju film. I should know, I'm crazy enthusiastic about this stuff, and I remember dragging my dad to the movie theater to watch this, and literally spazzing out whenever something monster-related happened, like, yeah! Am I obsessed? More than likely, yeah. I mean, Godzilla's a lot like my love life. Fictional, involves giant lizards, and gets rebooted a ton. You see, Legendary Pictures had guts doing this whole Monsterverse quadrilogy thing. Bringing back Godzilla and King Kong with a versus movie between the two to end it off was an insane idea. Each of the 4 Monsterverse films have their own tone, direction, and teams behind them. They all went in different ways to redo the monster movie bash stuff to try and evolve it into new ways. That sort of was their main goal here. Godzilla 2014 was the start. Gareth Edwards' take on Godzilla was a unique style, which reminded me of the Heisei era, but in a more grounded and realistic tone. The whole idea of giant monsters in this movie felt grounded in reality despite being literally giant monsters that just can't literally exist. I love this approach, but it has its problems where the monsters sort of just walked onto screen, and even at that, their screen time was so limited. Kong Skull Island was a survival monster island story. It felt more like a fantasy adventure film with, giant monsters, and once again, the monsters sort of just were there. Godzilla King of the Monsters clicked with kaiju fans like a magnet with its mystical and awestruck tone the monsters were handled in with this film. The monsters were way more present here, and more seen as gods or divine beings instead of forces of nature or just giant monsters. Michael Dougherty, the director of this movie, easily created the most unique kaiju film in decades. But even at this, the monsters sort of were just there. This is a universal problem each of these films have had. Despite being kaiju films, they were human films mostly. The main conflict presented has always been human related. It has always been about the humans instead of the monsters. This has been an issue with kaiju films since the beginning of time, aka, the 50s. And then the monsters weren't really anything besides the thematic resemblance which they were made for. Which, even at that didn't stick around for long, and they just became giant monsters that were almost faceless the entire time. This doesn't click with modern audiences anymore, so they needed to find a way to improve this. Each film did this in different ways, and each gained a dedicated fanbase, because honestly, each way was a good way to handle it, but none of them still fixed that fatal flaw. This is where Godzilla vs. Kong comes in. It did the most work on this issue compared to the other films. Directed by Adam Wingard, its tone was very fast-paced and heavy on futuristic science fiction. It definitely wasn't as loved as King of the Monsters, and you sort of get why. Before you ask, why are you saying all this? Well, no, A, I'm about to explain that, and B, I'm a Godzilla fan. I've been waiting to say this for years. It definitely wasn't a fan favorite like King of the Monsters, and yeah, that's fine, but That one fatal issue just wasn't as present in this film, all because of Kong. After watching this film for the first time in theaters, which I saw with my dad, and oh boy, I was spazzing out the car ride home, I did really love it. This was after months of waiting for it, years of waiting for it. I remember being so devastated when it was delayed out of March 2020. Then, for reshoots, and then it was in November, then it was delayed to May because of the Ebola outbreak. But then they pushed it forward to March, then delayed it by 2 weeks so Warner Brothers could finally get the Snyder cut over with. Yeah, it took forever to release, but then it lived up to my expectations, and then some. And as expected, I actually compared it to King of the Monsters, seeing which one I liked more. This is how this whole thing popped in my head. Kong was a character in this movie. And that is my major point here to why I think this film is, quote, the peak of Kaiju Cinema. Overall, I'm stuck between which one's my favorite. King of the Monsters is a more classical Godzilla film, versus Kong feels like a better kaiju film solely because of this one thing. And then here we go, let's talk about it. When doing an opening scene, you want to introduce the conflict of your movie, or sort of set up the main message you want to say. And at the end you sort of have a full circle ending thing, but showing that one change to sort of help solidify what you're trying to say or what the character has gone through. This isn't vital, but it's a good way to go with it. Like in how the opening scene to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Peter Parker says, "There's only one Spider-Man," and contrast that to the end where Miles is the new Spider-Man saying anyone can wear the mask. It's, just a full circle ending, and it's, I love these things, but let's look at Godzilla vs. Kong and how it did that. The film opens with King Kong waking up and walking around Skull Island, and BAM! We're presented with an issue. This isn't Kong's real home. He's being contained in this fake world, and throughout this film, we see that issue on Kong finding home, and we look at that to the end scene. He found his home, the Hollow Earth. Now, this is very basic character arc, but it exists. And it does interweave throughout the plot, and sort of has a meaning to what Kong does in this film. This film opens putting Kong first. He's the first character you see on screen, presenting his issue first, and then showing how the humans are a part of that, but on the side. Unlike King of the Monsters, which opened with the humans first, and then putting Godzilla there. Even though it did establish the conflict of Mark Russell and Godzilla, Godzilla was clearly there on the sidelines. This had Kong first. The monster ahead of the human. This is really as far as it goes in this film. It's just for Kong. Godzilla doesn't really go through that much, but this is a massive improvement. Kong does his things in this movie not because he has to, not because he's some god to protect Earth. He has more human reasons. That is explained with his connection to the child Gia. An obscure detail about her character is that how she's the last of the Eween people, and she is under the protection of Kong. Kong is the last of his people. Gia is the last of her people. They have that connection that they are the last of their kind. And that gives Kong an established deeper connection with this child beyond, look, it's a human, I want to protect her, she's like my daughter. No, it's deeper than that. It's empathy. Kong sees himself in her. Kong trusts her. He listens to her. This is different. He fights Godzilla in the Tasman Sea not only to survive, but also to protect her. He thinks she is all that he has left. When she tells him that his family might be in the Hollow Earth, that's why he makes a jump to go get them. And then when he finally finds the remnants of his home, he's happy. So when Godzilla destroys it and Kong goes full angry ape mode, we see the whole connection and the whole arc Kong has go through means something. It not only helps his arc go through, but also helps find a way for this film to actually be Godzilla vs. Kong. Kong has an actual reason to hate Godzilla now. And all of it just ties back together to home and family. It feels way more personal, and it gives Kong reason to do things more than just because the plot demands. He feels like a character when you think about it.
Round one. 2, 1, go!
Martin wins.
Oh boy.
You were running at 87% efficiency there. Improvement required. Running new ideas.
Next time, can you not deep fry a monkey?
Wasn't my idea to film this and post it on the dark web.
Now, the whole point of me bringing up Kong's arc was just to show how this film has way more of a character and had much more of a focus in the plot. These monsters actually meant something. Now, that was good. Could use a lot of improvement for future stuff, but it's a major step in the right direction and actually makes people root for Kong. You understand his struggle. This is the direction I want kaiju films to go in more, making these monsters more human, but not too human. Give them reason, give them certain things to do, why they do it. Do limit it to where it's not where they feel like they're a human character, if you know what I mean. It's difficult to explain what I'm trying to say here, but there's a good balance they can find where Kong still feels like the giant ape kaiju that he is, while also having a reason to do things. King of the Monsters may have handled its monsters in a more unique way, but they still didn't characterize them beyond the basic big monster fight. Now, of course, they could mix King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong together to maybe get the ultimate kaiju film that makes kaiju fans and normal audiences sort of better unite. But overall, it would just be like the perfect milkshake smoothie. Now, of course, there's a lot more to this film that I really love. I talked about Kong's arc and his hero journey, but I really don't got one for Godzilla because this plot sort of just didn't exist. He more so weaves in between Kong and Mechagodzilla's plot stuff. You could argue that Mechagodzilla's thing was Godzilla, but I personally disagree. Because the main focus was Mechagodzilla. Like, he did appear, and it did sort of explain a sort of human part of his thing. Overall, the Mechagodzilla arc was awesome, though. Mechagodzilla was awesome in this movie. Yes, it did bring up Godzilla's meaning for attacking humanity, as in humanity's trying to replace him, which is cool and feels really Godzilla at the end of the day, but it doesn't really go through much, and it's not really an arc. So I really can't say much about it for this. However, this doesn't mean they didn't plan something. We do know that Mothra was gonna be in the film, but she was cut early on. And then how Godzilla at one point was going to get a mechanical breather thingy because of toys and someone claiming that they claimed that they were in the VFX team which designed his model. Overall, it's just, they obviously planned more stuff for him, but because Adam Wingard likes his films to be less than 2 hours, they obviously cut it down. They clearly planned something and were trying to. I mean, they had 5 hours of footage, so there was probably tons cut. On to other characters. It's a kaiju film, they're basic. Maybe they have an arc, some have an interesting thing to do, but some of them they're there for the ride. But at least here, Kong was pushing his plot, which was leagues better than before. He's actually doing things of importance! Now, there's a lot more about this movie which I can mention, worth improving. Its science fiction theme is generic, and I get it fits Mechagodzilla, but the Mechagodzilla subplot dragged up until Mechagodzilla showed up, which is where it took a high note, but it was really slow and boring. But hey, I love this movie still. What did you do?
Steroids.
That's not legal. What would a versus movie be without some awesome action? Godzilla vs. Kong has a lot of action, and for once, it isn't disrupted by pointless human intervention. They only do something that directly involves the fight. Or just, for a really cool shot. In total, Godzilla and Kong fight 3 times. Tasman Sea, Hong Kong, and Hong Kong Part 2. The first 2 fights are leaned towards a certain kaiju to purposely give them an advantage, but in a way where we see their strengths and others' weaknesses. Such as Kong being, under sedatives and being in the middle of a giant massive sea. Then the final fight would just be an all-out brawl out where they just go nuts at each other, and it's brutal. The Tasman Sea battle sets Kong in the middle of the non-existent land of fish people. Godzilla is in his home territory and gets a big jump on Kong and almost drowns him from the start. They do a quick duel on an aircraft carrier, which does sway from side to side, but please don't ask me if it should be just destroying under Godzilla's feet. I don't know, okay? Would have been cool to see, but I can't explain the science. Yeah, Godzilla easily wins this one because, well, he's Godzilla in the ocean. It would be like trying to fight a Neanderthal in its home where it has a bunch of bananas or something. What did Neanderthals eat? Second fight is in Hong Kong, which shows Kong using his surroundings to his advantage. He may be a big ape, but, you know, he's in the big concrete jungle. He can quickly move around buildings and avoid attacks. Even using the top of a building as a shield from atomic breath, and then uses his axe for a killer move. Kong wins, but yeah, Godzilla's mad now. Like, the axe only scratched him, but like, look at that, he's mad now. He's gonna go crocodile mode. The final Brawl Fest is on even grounds. It's them just trying to absolutely kill each other. And it's brutal. You can feel the power in their hits, and it's scary seeing Godzilla like this. Like, oh my gosh. In the end, Godzilla proves himself as king, and decides to spare Kong, but he's still mad at him. Guess we can say Kong earned his respect or something. This is something which, you know, just didn't make much sense to me, but hey, at least it wasn't save Mothra. Kong ends up nearly dying as Godzilla goes and faces off with Mechagodzilla, who is now controlled by the mind of Kevin. It's Mecha Kevin. He has come to get revenge on Godzilla for killing his brothers. Now that's a revenge story. Kong and Godzilla end up teaming up. Kong absolutely wrecks Mechagodzilla. A bottle of whiskey somehow hurts him. The two part ways with Godzilla giving his respects to Kong. Boom, fight scene's done. The 4 major fight scenes in this movie are just incredible. The choreography, the action, all of it was just... it was good. The Mechagodzilla one, despite it being just kind of rushed, was still an awesome one to see. You could say how it's weird that Godzilla and Kong sort of just end up teaming up and with little to no, like, actual care about it, but the way I see it, Kong's goal was just to save Godzilla, because Geus, you know, sort of told him to. Well, Godzilla's goal this entire time in this movie has just been to kill Kevin, because, yeah, screw Kevin. He first went to fight Kong in the Tasman Sea just because, look, it's another alpha, just please go away. Then there was just the second time where that was Kong coming in saying, hey, you, then nearly dies. And then that final time, Godzilla's like, please, stay away, murders him, walks away. You know, it's a good way to get someone off your back. Godzilla clearly won this film. He won the most fights, and after all, he killed Kong. Kong died. You know, the best Kong could do was cut him. Kong definitely was a bit underpowered throughout this whole film, but in future films, I think that can be used to his advantage. Sort of make him feel more like a character, as in, like, he's not this all-powerful god. He's Kong. He's a giant ape. He's not a king of the monsters. He's not like the G-Man. Overall, the action in GVK is just insane. Pure kaiju fun. That's pretty dang awesome. Modern day kaiju films are CGI. People can complain about the overuses of CGI these days all they want for, you know, other films, but for this, it's needed. It's vital. Stuff like this, yes, would have been possible back in the day, but to an extremely limited extent. It's way better for a kaiju film, and it just hits so hard for this movie. There's so much detail in the visual effects, it's crazy. I'd say the visual effects in this film is the most impressive in the entire Monsterverse, and it's obvious it required a ton of work from some of the most talented people in the entire industry. I compare Kong in this movie to the previous one. His model just looked so much nicer, especially the fur. It feels like I can just cuddle right up to it. VFX teams in general deserve more praise for their work they do in the movie industry. They should have been nominated for more awards, but no. They just gave the VFX nomination to Black Widow. What? Why? 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 The overall cinematography in this movie is cool. It's not like King of the Monsters, which was just absolutely S tier. But the shots are visually pleasing. There are some which just make me go, oh yeah. Each battle and location had a very different feel to it because of its color. And I love that. There's more colors mixing together, which, you know, matches with the neon look of Hong Kong. And then, you know, like the Tasman Sea battle was like a really cool day thing. And then the Mechagodzilla fight, which was clearly going to be an original night fight, but they changed it not last minute, but like they changed it. They ended up changing it to a early morning fight, which even at that still looked good. And that's just because of the fact that the CGI just so well detailed. Then we have sound design, which, just has always been amazing for the Monsterverse. Godzilla's roar is just so Godzilla. These films have always excelled at the sound design for their monsters, and let's, of course, commemorate them for that. And the music has been an underrated staple of the Monsterverse, which each film has a unique soundtrack, especially the Godzilla films. Alexandra Desplat's Godzilla score felt right at home with its Japanese instruments. Felt like I was listening to an evolution of whatever this song was. I love that. Bear McCreary's score for King of the Monsters was absolutely insane. It gave way to the film's mythical tone and just blew me away. So I was expecting Godzilla vs. Kong's score to be really good. I remember when they announced that the legendary Junkie XL was scoring the film. I was hyped. Tom Holkenborg is a talented composer. He can pump out quality soundtracks like rabbits do bunnies. So why was this one a runt? The movie's soundtrack was really just fine. I personally expected more from it. Its battle themes were cool, but not much was really special outside of the throne score, which actually was pretty dang good. It just really wasn't anything that special. It fit the sci-fi theme, but he did a fine job, but it was just, But I will respect that Tom Holkenborg tried to give Kong an iconic theme, like he 7-minute song in the soundtrack for it, but, then wasn't even used in the film. Like, it was a good theme. It can be good occasionally, but yeah. I feel like this wasn't really that good. The entire soundtrack. Overall, Godzilla vs. Kong has a lot of issues, but I adore this film. What it does with Kong was so much better than anything that came before it. It's such a surprisingly different film, not as unique as King of the Monsters, but this film was good and should be recognized for what it did. Making it more than a unique kaiju film, in my opinion, the peak of the kaiju genre, and a major step in the right direction evolving the franchise. Because of this, I am mega hyped for the upcoming Son of Kong movie because he can expand Kong's character into something even better than what we just saw.